Hello fellow writers, my name's Laura and welcome to Learn to Writer, the channel where we discuss the mental challenges of being a writer. And if this is your first time here, I'm so happy to see you. I'm glad that you decided to join us today. And if you have been here before, may the words be ever in your favor. I'm a very creative person and writing is my main creative outlet. And in general, I have story ideas coming out from everywhere. I have a Scrivener file where I keep story ideas and sparks of ideas and lines from video games and media that are just really cool and I think I would like to use. I have a whole Scrivener file full of that. And I was the person who had to figure out that other people weren't writers when I was a child because I just wrote, and telling stories was just very natural to me. So this video is going to be for the other fellow creatives like myself who have all of these story ideas that are there's so many of them and you don't even know what all to do with them. I'm going to take you through some steps on how to choose which story it is that you actually want to work on. And I do discourage you from trying to work on more than one story at a time. Some writers can manage two if they're at different stages. I used to, when I was young, I had so many story ideas that I would write on a ton of different stories at the same time. And the problem that I found with that is that often you'll work on the story that is the most shiny at the time. And then when you get to the difficult part where you're not quite sure how to move forward, or it gets a little rough, or it's a part of it that you don't want to edit, then you go work on the other stories. You never really get to completion on any one story. I consider the point at which I realized that I needed to work on one story and one story only, like the real beginning of my writing career. Not that, I wasn't writing stories and learning stuff before then, but there's something to be said for taking on a project and seeing that one through. Okay, so the first action step in figuring out which of your many ideas you want to use as a story is to literally list them all out. Just open up a new page in your Scrivener file or on a piece of paper or wherever and just start writing out all the different story ideas you have. It doesn't have to be a super involved description, no more than a sentence for each story. The main thing is just to have a list that is a reference of all of the story ideas that you have. You'll tend to find while you're doing this that the ones that are at the top are probably the ones that you're a little more excited about, a little more thorough, but that doesn't mean don't write down all the rest of them, right? You want to have that whole list of all the story ideas that you have, and then you can keep this list and put it somewhere, right? Maybe you haven't ever written these all out before, they were all in your head, all that kind of thing. Maybe one of the ones on there will spark something else, or whatever. Go ahead and write as long a list as you possibly can. Take a couple of minutes. You can pause the video and then come back when you have your list done. Now you're back. Fabulous. I'm going to put a little screenshot up here of the list that I have come up with so that you can see that. As you can see from your list, story ideas are a dime a dozen. I'm not worried about you guys looking at any of my story ideas and stealing them, because I'll just come up with more. And even if we use the exact same idea, we're going to write entirely different stories. I know some people who, they have their story ideas and they're very precious about their story ideas. Part of being a writer is that you have your unique way of writing. No matter what idea you have, yes, it is possible to write a story that is close enough to somebody else's story that you might get a copyright lawsuit or something like that. If you try and write a Harry Potter XP, you probably have to work to have it not be exactly like Harry Potter, right? It's still going to be your story and your unique story. And even if you took the story of Harry Potter and decided that you were going to follow this, for fan fiction or something like that, you are not going to end up with the same story that J.K. Rowling did, because you are a different person than J.K. Rowling. Hopefully you're less transphobic. So we have our list of ideas here. They are all wonderful and bright and shiny and new. Not all ideas are created equal. There are certain ideas that are not going to be able to carry a full novel. Sometimes they can carry a short story, sometimes they can't. Some of the ideas are just going to be you can take the little ideas and put them in to prop up your novel idea. I will say that I was like pure discovery writer as a child. I almost didn't even need to have a story idea before I started writing, and it just all poured out. These days, I do like to have a little bit of an idea of what I'm getting into before I get into it, learn more structure and all that kind of stuff. The more developed an idea is in your head, the better it is going to be as a story idea. It doesn't mean exclusively, or you want to keep an eye out for those stories where you have your little one-sentence description and then you're like, and this other thing, and this other thing, and this other thing, right? So now we're going to be moving on to the next step of this, and that is how you're going to take your list and pick which of these story ideas is the one that you're going to be working on. We're going to go to this list, and we are going to pick 4 to 5 of these ideas. They're going to be your favorites, right? There's no, pick the ugly duckling or whatever of this. This is, go for the 5 ideas that excite you the most. They may be stories that you've already written some on. This is not, there are no rules on this, like you can't have written any words on it yet, or you can't have done any world building, right? That's why it was like, just write down all the ideas that you have. And some of these, like you might have already gone in knowing that the thing that you put at the top of this list was something that was already going to be on this list for potential writing projects, because you just have that much invested into it already. But one of the things that you want to be able to do right now is go through this process so that when it is less clear of an idea of which project you want to work on, that you figure out what the process is and then you can repeat it later on. List the 4 or 5 ideas that excite you the most. Go ahead and add a couple of details to each of these ideas. First off, do you have a beginning, a middle, and end to this idea? I'm not saying written, obviously, because then you would have a rough draft. But do you have an idea of where your book's going to start, what's going to happen in the middle of the book, what's going to happen at the end of the book? It is okay if you do not. I very rarely know what my midpoint or my end point are when I start writing. I just know this is my concept. You don't have to have those things. Now, if you are more of a plotter, you might actually have those. I know that my partner does not start writing until they have, I don't even know how much of it they have planned out in their head, but they have far more than I have planned out in their heads before they decided an idea is good enough to start working on. One of the things you want to put next to each of these ideas is, do you have a beginning, a middle, and an end decided already? You don't even have to write down what that is. Just say, yes, no, I have beginning, middle, and end. You also want to write down, do you have an idea for your main characters? Do you have any idea who's going to be telling this story? Your main character, maybe some of the side characters. I get very excited by characters, so it might be that you really don't know what the beginning, the middle, and end are, but I really want to have that super skilled backwoods archer who gets caught up in political intrigue or, something like that. Your character can be the starting point, and then you kind of build the world around what you want them to have to experience. Also, go ahead and add, if you have done any world building or writing or plotting or any of that kind of stuff, just, make a note of that. In general, the stories where you have put that effort into them, they're probably somewhat exciting to you. So go ahead and pause, take your list, cut it down to 4 to 5, add those details onto it, pause this video, go do that, and then come back. Okay, welcome back. That's great. So here's my updated list. Those are the story ideas about which I am the most excited right now and are basically the ones that I am working on whether or not I want to do after my current work in progress, because I'm kind of in the middle of my current work in progress, but it's never too early to figure out what you're going to write next. It can be, but I'm just doing this for the video. So if the story ideas that you have on your list, if you've already written some actual prose for the story, read that over. If you have not yet written any prose for it, go ahead and write the first chapter-ish. Obviously, it can be shorter than that, depending on how long it takes you to write a chapter. But you basically want to introduce yourself to the idea of the world, your main character, figure out what your promises are to your reader, and your inciting incident. You don't always get to that in the first chapter, but you kind of want it to take off, right? You want to see where the story is going to take off, how quickly it is exciting, whether or not you actually like the idea once you start writing it. You want to do that for all of the all the stories. If you don't already have prose for them, just go ahead and do that for all of your stories. It's going to take a little while. It might be longer than pausing this video and coming back to it. You might actually have to reload this video. Yes, I am suggesting that you just walk away from this video for a little while, but please come back and finish watching it. That would be great. Thank you. And you can, for bonus points, create an elevator pitch for your story. You don't necessarily want to write only the type of stuff that is super marketable, but you do kind of have to take that into consideration. If it comes like with a really easy elevator pitch and you're like, oh, that's an awesome elevator pitch, that can influence which story you might want to work on a little bit. And if you're not great at elevator pitches, don't get hung up on that part, because whichever you end up picking, you'll have plenty of time to work on some sort of an elevator pitch later on. If you do manage to do your elevator pitches, then go to your fans and ask them which idea they happen to like the best. Your friends are your fans. If you don't have any actual people that you don't know who have read your books and want to read more of your books yet, you have your friends, your family who have read your stuff. Those are your fans, and you can go and be like, here, these are the ideas that I'm thinking about. Which one of these would you be most interested in reading? And you can get a little bit of outside perspective as well. You are now going to look at all of this, and you are going to pick the idea that you are the most interested in. It is not, oh, this one I've worked the most on, or this one is the most marketable. Legit, you're going to look at these and be like, this is the one that I am the most interested in. You want to have all that other stuff because you want to be aware of it. You want to understand how, what other people are interested in it. You want to know, does it seem marketable, all that kind of stuff. At the same time, you're going to be putting a lot of effort into writing a novel. It takes a lot of time and effort to write a novel. And so you want it to be the story idea that you are the most interested in. You are then going to start making your weekly goals and start working on the story. It is now your new story. It is your new work in progress. I have a video on, how to make good goals that will help you get through this, and start working on that. If you're one of those people who's been working on a whole bunch of different stories for a really long time, I challenge you to only work on this one story. Doesn't mean you can't daydream about your other stories. It doesn't mean, you can't look at pictures on Pinterest or whatever the heck you want. But, you really want to be focusing on working on just this one story. Now, if after a week or two, you find that you are just absolutely obsessed with a different story idea, one of the ones that you didn't pick, then that might be a sign to switch to that other idea. And this happens sometimes where we kind of convince ourselves that we're the most interested about this one story idea, and then once you've chosen, you realize that you really wanted a different one. If you ever heard about the thing where you flip a coin and you have the two ideas and you flip the coin, and then if it lands and you're disappointed, then you know that you really wanted to choose the other one. It's kind of like that. You could technically flip a coin. If you've got two ideas where you weren't sure which one you would rather do, flip a coin. If it's heads, I'm going to work on the dragon story. If it's tails, I'm going to work on the space pirates story. And then it lands on tails, and you're like, oh, but I really wanted to work on the dragon story. Work on the dragon story, right? If you need to switch, go ahead and switch and make your goals and start doing that. If you have that instance again where you're suddenly you're starting to really focus on the story that you're not working on, in as much as I have authority over you, I'm going to suggest that you do not change again. I obviously cannot keep you from changing which story that you're working on. Your brain wants what it can't have, right? It's the grass is greener on the other side type of thing. And at a certain point, in order to make progress, you're gonna have to stick with one story. So while I'm not saying you absolutely cannot switch back again, seriously consider why it is that you feel like you need to switch, and try and stick with just the one story. It might be that that's always going to be a challenge with you. And it might be that once you've picked one of these ideas and you take off and you are sure that I have now decided that this is the story I'm going to work on, you might just take off and you make your goals and you get through all that stuff, and at the end of some ridiculously short period of time, you have a novel. Congratulations to you. It takes the rest of us so much longer. So you want to keep making goals and working on the story and developing it and getting through any problems and watching out for the 3/4 marks and all that kind of stuff until you eventually have a finished product. And that is one of the best ways to be able to finish a project, is to focus solely on that project. So, once again, in order to pick which story idea you have out of the myriad story ideas you have in your head, you want to list them all out, and you're going to rank your options, get opinions if that is possible for you. Then you're going to choose a story, and you're going to make your goals on it. You're going to start working on it. While you're working on it, you'll figure out if that really is the project you're most excited about. If not, you get, one free do-over where you can switch to another idea while you're still fairly early. After that, you just keep making your goals and keep going until you've finished. Obviously, we know that finishing a book is not quite that easy, but that at least gets you to the point where you are working on a singular project. I have other videos and other discussions on topics that can help you finish that project once you have chosen your idea. So if you like this video, go ahead and like this video. If you want to see some of those other videos that might help you to actually finish the story once you have picked one of your ideas, go ahead and subscribe, and you can look through my library. And I will see you guys in the next video. Okay, bye-bye.